Hey YouTube, it's Joe. Well, as promised, new week, new video. This week I thought I'd get a bit nostalgic for you. Right after I passed third grade, my father got a new job. So we ended up moving from Grand Prairie, Texas, which is a suburb of Dallas, to Catlettsburg, Kentucky, which is a suburb of Ashland. Now, if you've never heard of Ashland, well, that's because in comparison to Dallas, which has a population of over 1 million, Ashland has a population of about 20,000. So, as you can imagine, besides just the normal anxiety I had of, being uprooted from my friends, my school, my life, I also had to deal with the fact that I lived in a part of the country where there was nothing going on. Catlettsburg, where I lived, had a population less than 2,000. And Ashland was about half an hour, 40-minute drive. So when you're that young, you really don't have a lot of options for stuff to do. So basically the only place you could really socialize was school. So during the school year, it was fine. But during the summer, there was nothing to do. All of my friends lived miles and miles away from me because we lived out the sticks. And our cable company, back then sucked. They didn't have Disney, they didn't have Nickelodeon for the longest time. They didn't have anything. So, yeah, those first couple of summers were kind of hard. So, one day I had gone to the supermarket, the Piggly Wiggly, as it's called. My mom did some grocery shopping, and like I said, just out of boredom, I went down the magazine aisle and I found the comic book section. Now, before that, I never really read many comic books. Just a couple here and there, some Archies. I think there was like a Kool-Aid Man comic book I got free when my mom bought the pack of Kool-Aid, something like that. But, so, I never really read comic books before, and the first comic I picked up was actually a series called X-Men Classic. Not like the regular X-Men, but this was like retelling the story of the X-Men from prior, like 50 years ago, like 5 or 10 years ago, from that time. So it looked interesting. So I had my mom, buy it for me, and then after that I got pretty hooked. I got into Spider-Man, let's see, Incredible Hulk, Ghost Rider, just a bunch of different series. So, and again, at first it just started as a way just to combat boredom. But after a while, I really got into it. I really started to enjoy it. So from about third grade up until recently, I've been a faithful comic book collector. I kept going to comic book stores, from grade school to high school, college, and like I said, up until recently, I still go every week. But lately, I don't know. It's just, I don't know if I'm just getting older, and I've hit that phase, where you put away childish things because they no longer entertain you, or, I don't know, maybe comic books have just changed, but it's getting harder and harder for me to get excited about them. Maybe it's because now that there's so many different entertainment outlets, comic books have had to change, so whereas once they had like maybe 1 or 2 like major events, throughout the year, now it's just nonstop. It's like you can't catch your breath. It goes from one to another, and each, crisis, each, miniseries, each whatever, you have to buy 10 or 12 issues of stuff just to kind of, get the whole thing. And nowadays they collect them in trades, so it's a little bit easier to collect all those, but at the same time, it's just like, this is so not worth it. And I think, and also for me, I think a lot has changed in the past year with the relaunch of DC Comics' universe. If you're not really familiar with comic books, basically DC rebooted their whole franchise, kind of like how Christopher Nolan did with the Batman movie recently. And honestly, I just can't get into it. And it's not because they're just new. I mean, I got into Ultimate Marvel, which was basically not really a reboot of the Marvel universe, Marvel Comics, Spider-Man, all that, but more like a alternate reality kind of thing. So, and I really love that stuff up until recently. I'll get to that in a second. But for DC, I just can't get into it. Just because it just seems like everything is status quo with them. It's like there's no new stories to tell. A good example, right before the reboot of DC, they had this series called Bright as Day, which is way too complicated to get into. So you can just go ahead and Google that, and you can get the idea of what happened. But in it, one of the characters, his name was Deadman. He was a ghost, hence Deadman. Was brought back to life, and part of the series was about him, struggling to deal with the fact that he was no longer a ghost but a real man and everything, and getting reacquainted with his family, getting a girlfriend, and all that stuff. Which, honestly, it was one of the best parts of the series. I really enjoyed it. But then at the end of the series, he's dead again. So it's like, well, God, you made me care for this character. You made me care for this relationship that he was developing with his girlfriend, and then you just killed him, and it's status quo over again. I mean, there is so much they could have done with that character. I mean, they could have, made him a paranormal investigator. They could have made somebody else become the dead man, and he becomes his spiritual advisor or something like that. But there was just a lot of different things they could have done with that, and they just went right back to what they were doing. And which is kind of like the same thing that they're doing with the reboot of DC. It's like the same stories over again. I mean, they're new, obviously, but it's basically just rehashing, like Justice League is the characters getting together for the first time, and Superman, it's him discovering his powers for the first time, and things like that. I mean, there are some good issues. There are some good series like Demon Knights, which is really good. If you've never heard of that, check that out. But for the most part, I just can't get excited anymore. So what I thought I'd do is get some classic comic books, stuff that was out when I was growing up, but I never actually read for one reason or another. So I went on eBay. I got some issues. I got some trade paperbacks here. I've got G.I. Joe classic collection 1, 3, 8, and 9. And yeah, I'm not really sure why the guy sold it in that lot either. I guess maybe these were the only ones he had available, or I don't know. Anyway, but it was only $35 for all of them. So I mean, that's basically 2 1/4 free. So what the hell? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna check out Volume 1 and see what I think. And then I'll report back later, not next week, but maybe a week after that or whatever. Report back what I thought, and maybe that'll become a new thing. Maybe I will start just going back into the series that I never checked out and see if they're any good, see if they're worth reading. Because, at the very least, these stories hadn't been told yet, so they'll be new to me. So, anyway, that's my video for the day, for the week. So, tune in next week. Might do something nostalgic, might do something current. We'll see. Alright, hope you enjoyed it. Bye.